Hello, hello, hello. Gridiron 360 here with ya. A little B to the D. And we appreciate you joining us for some fantasy football talk. We're going into week 5. Wanted to give you a little rundown of what we saw this last week, what happened to us, some players to look for out on the waiver wire, some matchups that maybe we can take advantage of this week. As always, we'll run through position groupings. Yeah, Dave, how'd it go for you this week, my friend?
Well, it's all about the W's, and I got the W, but it was a nail biter for me. I've been doing pretty well in fantasy, been in first. Played you were tied with me, and that was a pretty good battle. Went down to the wire, but I had built a pretty good lead in the first 2 weeks from a points perspective because I've had some good consistency out of a lot of players, and this week came about and the consistency went out the window.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a kooky week all around in NFL and in fantasy. Finally got to see Davante Adams. It was nice to start off with the Thursday night game and Davante Adams rocking and rolling. Put up 29 points in our league. Mm-hmm. Again, we've said it before, high-scoring league. My keeper, Nick Chubb, awesome.
Gave you a Chubb?
Gave me a Chubb. I also had Leonard Fournette. Gave me a Chubb. I also had Cooper Kupp. Gave me a Chubb. Baltimore defense against Cleveland really crapped themselves for me. Will Lutz is my kicker. He did all right. Zeke, solid. I mean, just because, again, we talked about in our NFL cast, just he had a plunge in the end zone. But I destroyed Mr. Matthew Skubik and chomping at your bit. I closed the gap. I think there was about an 80-point gap between us, and I think it's down to, 20, 30? Where are we at?
24?
25? All right.
And an important win, though. I still have a game lead. So.
Yes. So,
but we are head and shoulders above the rest of the league, the 2 highest scorers by a nice amount, and I'm 4-0, you're 3-1, and next best is 2-2. So we're both leading. It's going to be a battle all the way through the end.
Now, that's in our league. I am in 2 other leagues. Mm-hmm. Another league that's Yahoo League, identical to ours, because I'm the commissioner and I just replicated it. It was easier that way. And then I joined an ESPN, was asked to join as a 12th man in an ESPN league. In both those leagues, I sit at 1-3. It's ugly. However,
going back to the lab, as Jeff Mann says.
Yes, I love Jeff Mann's Fantasy Football Radio Elite Sports on every day from 2 to 4, I think. Yeah, look, it's by no means, I may be at the bottom of the barrel. Still early enough in the season. I just got to make the right moves, put in the right guys. Both of those leagues I lost again this week, and it really wasn't, the one Yahoo league I got absolutely dominated, but the ESPN league I lost by a butt hair, and had I, played Jarvis Landry instead of Calvin Ridley, I would have won handily. So just some bad moves I made. Let's start out with position groups and talk a little bit about running back.
Okay.
Obviously, the guy of the week was Nick Chubb. Had 165 rush yards on 20 attempts, 3 TDs, had like an 80-yard long. Fournette never saw the end zone, but he had 225 rush yards. So he was not far behind Mr. Chubley. David Johnson had 99 receiving yards, 11 rushing attempts for minuscule yards. Ended up having a decent day. A lot of that was due to the reception yards. Who else we got out there? James Conner did all right for you yesterday, more so in the passing game with 83 receiving yards. He did have a TD. He was your keeper in our league, so he did all right. Derrick Henry, decent day. Didn't see the end zone, but had 27 rushes for 100 against the Falcons. What else we got out there?
Yeah, I think you saw, some guys started to, I think, maybe come back down to earth. Mark Ingram's kind of turning into more of a touchdown back, and Mans was talking about that a little bit yesterday.
Didn't really do much.
Kamara, while still productive and certainly a focal point of the offense, the scoring levels, obviously, for New Orleans are not up where they'd been with Breeze, so those are ones that are coming back.
McCaffrey had an awesome day again.
Yeah, he's
he
just
did
a
his
touch
thing.
machine.
He's right up there with the leaders for the week. McCaffrey went a little nutty.
Yeah, if you're PPR, you absolutely love him.
Yeah, we said it.
Chris Carson got back a little better, had a good day.
Fumble it, Ruski's not happening there. Good for him. Rashad Penny's still on the sidelines. He did get a touchdown vultured from CJ Procise.
Yeah.
And he also had a touchdown that was called back in that game. So it actually could have been even better. And he had a good day out there.
Let me just say, all the crappy running backs on Kansas City managed to steal touchdowns from Mahomes.
Yeah, well, I had read a little piece about Darrell Williams being a potential sleeper for the week, and I put him in a daily fantasy lineup, and it worked out.
Yeah, he knocked out 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, the yardage wasn't great, but he looked all right. Devontae Freeman, he in our league put up 72 receiving yards off of 8 receptions, 12 rushes, crap yards. Didn't see the end zone. He put up a 24 in our league, which is modest. But again, that was giving it everything he had.
Yeah.
And so it's not looking good in terms of where we're going in the future with him.
Yeah, Jordan Howard had a phenomenal day.
He had a phenomenal
3
day.
touchdowns, had close to 100 on the ground, caught 3 balls, including the score.
I know that's a running back by committee, but he definitely, and I mean, you never know. It's a mixed bag. It's like the same thing when you deal with the Patriots, and really right now with teams like the 49ers, but he certainly looked to be, a guy that they could keep him as the lead back. He served very well in that role. So, you're very high on the player himself. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
I like
wire
him.
He's out there.
I like him. Whether you're going to get consistency out of him, I can't promise that. But as a player, I like him.
Gal had a decent day. He got in. He saw the end zone against a really good Chicago defense that had their number the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, the end zone was critical, but the thing was, both the Bears with David Montgomery and Dalvin Cook, neither one of them did well in the yardage, but they both committed to running the ball a lot during the game. The Bears because they lost Trubisky, and Minnesota because they have Cousins.
That's correct. A little shout-out to my boy, Wayne the Train Gallman from Clemson, stepping in lieu of
Monster
Saquon.
Game.
18 rushes for 63 yards. His receiving yards were 6 receptions for 55 yards. Saw the touchdown through the air and on the ground. Did lose a fumble. I told you in our last segment recapping NFL Week 4. This is a guy that came out of high school. You play both ways, especially if you're that good. He was a back in high school up the road here from us in Atlanta at Norcross. He was also a linebacker. That was his spot, was linebacker. When he came to Clemson, he was running back. And what makes him good, he can catch the ball. He's got good moves, he can run between tackles. He loves contact, and that's the linebacker in him. Loved seeing him get going. Certainly not a guy that, I would say, you're going to see it every week out of him. But he was able to spell Saquon in his absence and do a great job, and I would expect him to be solid throughout the year. He's a great backup running back. He's not a guy, unless it's a garbage team with no running backs, that you really want to take the lead. But he's great backup running back.
I mean, he's playable as long as you've got him as as soon as he's the lead dog, which he is for a little while now, definitely.
A little David Montgomery. We had talked about that also in our NFL recap. Didn't have great yardage, 53 yards, but he had 21 rushes and definitely led the Bears of all their backs in rushes, and he's slowly but surely, week after week, building his role as that lead back.
Yeah, if you're PPR, he's still got a lot of value. He's just non-PPR leagues. He's still struggling a little bit.
Connor did his thing.
Yeah. I mean, the only concern with Connor, you got to just keep an eye to. Connor was the more effective player out of the backfield, though, is just sharing his carries, because, I mean, their carries were 10 and 10.
Yeah.
But Connor did better through the air and definitely did better through the yardage overall. So, and they both got a score. Yep. So you're not going to get, he was worth my keeper in the sense that he was a free agent pickup I did during the year, so he was a last round draft pick.
Right.
But not playing according to last year for certain.
Right.
But we did talk about this. The offense looks better. It's certainly going to be more of a running game type offense with Rudolph in there, at least for the near future, and it was effective. So continue to monitor that. That could end up playing into the hands of really both backs, for that matter.
Sure. So yeah, that's kind of some of the guys that did well. Let's flip it over. Let's talk about some guys that did not perform from the running back position.
How about Aaron Jones? I think he had 31 yards in the game or something like that. Yeah, their running game was terrible. Joe Mixon got touches, but really struggled against.
Yeah,
the front
they shut him down. The whole backfield in Denver was crap. Philip Lindsay, 53 yards on 9 attempts. Rolls Royce, I don't even have him up here. Not even worth mentioning because I don't think it was any better. So that backfield in Denver is less than desirable, especially because you can't. They're splitting the touches pretty evenly, so it's going to be hard for one of them to really throw up big points. So unless you have someone on a bye, you need to drop someone in a flex, injury, something like that. And I have Royce Freeman in that ESPN 12-team league, so the cupboard's bare in terms of wire players. He's been riding my pine the whole time, and I just don't know if he'll ever see a start. But, who else we got out there?
Carlos. All things Washington are bad.
Yeah, it's just ugly in Washington.
Thompson is by far the best player from a fantasy perspective, and he is marginal on a bad day kind of thing.
Yep. So. Eckler had a good day. We expect Melvin Gordon to get involved. He didn't get involved at all.
Yeah, you ride him until they show you that they're going to play.
I'm going to. Carlos Hyde for the Texans, 12 rushes for 58 yards. Never saw the end zone. Did nothing. So that wasn't really a help to anybody.
Yeah, nor did the Texans offense as a whole do anything. But yes, that's still not. They are not run heavy, and so that's going to lead those guys to be less than spectacular.
Todd Gurley had 2 rushing touchdowns, which he had a better than average day, only because of 2 rushing touchdowns. The guy is just he had 5 rushing attempts for 16 yards. Yeah, he did have 7 receptions for 54, but it's just that's not. I mean, I know the way it shook out from a points perspective in fantasy might have been decent enough for you, especially from the PPR standards with the 7 receptions. But if you have PPR, 7 receptions, 7 points, 2 touchdowns, 12, that's 19 right there. That was really it. I guess I say all that to say that I'm not sure about that. And they did have they split the carries with Brown pretty evenly, and he did nada. But I don't know what to think about Gurley. Here's Rolls Royce Freeman, 4 receptions for 34 yards, 6 rushes for 16 yards. That stinks.
Yeah, Marlon Mack
did nada.
He has been up and down.
Played him in DFS. Why? T.Y. Hilton was out thinking, who'd they play?
Raiders.
Yeah, I was like, hey, Raiders not bad on the rush side of their defense. Definitely better than the pass defense, but come on. And he Marlon Mack. We talked about that in the last cast. I don't know what's up.
Yeah, he is, obviously started the year with a really strong game. He's kind of been going back and forth. So maybe he's on a hot week this week, but you're going to play him, and he's going to be the guy, it looks like, that's not going to be consistent for you. So either you ride him and you take the highs and lows, or you try to guess right.
Yeah. Frank Gore. I'm trying to pull up what his final was for the day.
You mean as far as just the daily stats?
Yeah, like what his stats were, and hello. He crossed the. He had 17 rushes for 109 yards. Didn't see the end zone. From our point system, it was a 20.5-point day, is what it looks like. I guess that, not great, but what's, obviously to note is the man is old and still getting it done. Crossed that 15,000-yard mark. Hats off to him. I mean, good performance by the guy, and it really kind of amazes me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and if you really think about him, just to not to go too deep into this, but kind of an interesting thing is this guy dealt with a massive knee injury.
Yep.
And then I think he came into the pros and had another one.
Yep.
So
he did.
And this was early in his career.
Yep.
And yet here we are, like Father Time might have won a few battles early on, but lost the war, because this guy's just hanging in there, and just I got to give him credit. He's not flashy anymore, but you look at a guy like AP, and he's not getting it done like this guy's doing, and he's been one of the better rebounding backs with last year's performance, AP, and this guy Gore just does it. As much as I can't stand his Miami heritage, he's the man.
Yeah. LaShawn McCoy took the lead back role for KC. They struggled in this game. He did have a TD, but he only had 56 yards on the ground. Not a great day. The Darrell Williams kid actually came in and punched in a couple touchdowns. I don't think he had a phenomenal day on the ground, but the touchdowns really helped. Who else do I see out here?
Let's talk a little bit about projections.
Yeah. I'm just trying to see if there's anyone else I didn't cover, because I thought I saw some. Oh, Devin Singletary was out for Buffalo. That's why homeboy. Ronald Jones took the lead role in terms of attempts. 19 rushes, 70 yards, and a TD for the Bucks. Had a solid day. Josh Jacobs, 17 for 79. Didn't see the end zone. Had 29 receiving yards, less than spectacular. Really, since that first week, we really haven't, where he blew up. He kind of blew his wad there, and he hasn't really put up a great day since that first week. So that's kind of a rundown of what we saw out there. Let's talk a little bit, like you said, about projections for week 5 and maybe some potential backs out on the wire to look for.
Yeah, well, let me start a little bit with some one. We'll mention it now. Your 2 bye weeks this week, two bye teams are Detroit and Miami. Detroit, from a running back perspective, you got Kerryon Johnson, who actually had a good day, but you're going to be looking to replace him with somebody this week. And if you have anybody on the Miami squad in any form, send me an invite to your league, because I want to play you next year, because you are an idiot. So I don't think there's not a whole lot of fantasy talk, a few people to talk about in Detroit, and that's about it. I think, on the running back side, a running back I would be very far away from is Josh Jacobs next week, given that Dalvin Cook was held pretty much in check. Still scored some points in a PPR league, but held pretty well in check by Bears defense. So he gets that unfortunate task this week. Their run defense is unbelievable this year.
Yeah.
So that's probably one that I would say who did all right, and is, it really depends. If they get the right kind of David Carr, the more efficient David Carr of last week. Derek Carr, we did that in the last one.
I did that, yeah.
Derek Carr, if you get the more efficient Derek Carr, he can run well. He won't get, they won't get behind, and you can get a good day out of him, but this is probably not the day.
Looking at some other matchups, we talked about Zeke, and then with his contract and him just, if anything, touchdown saving him. I know the Green Bay defense has been better, or at least perceived to be better. So the Packers come to Jerry World to take on the Cowboys, and I got to be honest with you, dude. My gut's telling me that this is the game. This is
gets
the game
going.
we're going to see him go off. I think he probably feels some of the heat, even though it's not really like strong heat directed at him. But I think he's probably wants one of those breakout games of the year that we're used to seeing. And I just have this feeling this might be a week. Not like you wouldn't ride him anyway if he's on your team, but this could be a week he gets right. Chubb,
just remember, Green Bay got torched by the backfield, and especially Jordan Howard in that game. And, Zeke coming out the same year as Jordan Howard is certainly the more physically gifted and talented. And, they're Dallas coming off a loss where their offense looked really out of sync. So
they're going to need
could be
him.
a lot of motivation between those factors.
Leonard Fournette goes to Carolina. He's going to get the workload. He has gotten the workload. This is going to be much tougher to ask. You're not going to see. I hope he breaks 100 yards, but he hasn't broken 100 yards really at all this season. Then throws up a deuce and a quarter. Yeah. So Fournette, from a PPR perspective, you're gonna you'll ride this guy if you got him. Yep. But I don't, by any means expect a 225 rush yard day. And unfortunately for me, I'm a little wary on Chubb. Now, it is Monday Night Football. They're going to San Francisco. He should get the workload because we talked about in our last cast. When they gave him the workload, they were sharp. They took down a team that especially on the defensive side of the ball in their house, didn't expect that to happen. I don't know that he's going to do the 50-point day that he did in our league, but he should have a solid day. San Francisco's defense, especially the front, is, I think, a little under the radar in terms of how good they are. I think they're a little bit better than folks think. I was just trying to pull it up to see what they were ranked at going into this week, especially from a rush perspective. Nonetheless, I think Chubb will have a decent day. Aaron Jones, he's on the other side of the ball, going to Dallas. I don't know.
Nope.
You
play him at your own risk. I would say that I just think Dallas is going to be out for blood, and if Green Bay is going to compete in that game, we all know when Green Bay comes up against a tough contest, what happens? Where's the ball go?
In the air.
Goes in the air. So he's been a little bit like Marlon Mack, up and down, more down than up so far this year. But he did have that one big game. Was it week 3? He had a good week when Rodgers was a little bit down. But that's a challenging defense to play against, and when it gets down to when the rubber hits the road, it's going to get up in Aaron's arms.
Yep. Just kind of segueing off a name you just dropped, Mr. Marlon Mack, who had a poor day last week. Now, T.Y. is still questionable for this week. We'll see if he's going to be able to go. Mack is actually banged up a little bit as well with an ankle, but he was before the game and he played. They go to KC, and Kansas City has given up the 11th most fantasy points to running backs this season. So, there's going to be a lot of scoring in the game. Kansas City defense can be had. So it's an opportunity for him to kind of get right again. He had an okay week against Atlanta last week, but really haven't seen quite the performance of his 174-yard performance in week 1. And, this could be a week where he kind of gets right. The real thing is, the real deal is whether he's 100% to go this week.
Yeah, well, I think also, too, is this. Like, you saw what happened if you watched or caught up some of the stuff, the stats for the Raider game, is the Raiders got out front early. And the Chiefs are going to obviously look to do that, too, as well, is to get out front early. And if they do, does that change the complexion of the way that they didn't, while Mac didn't run well, they didn't run a lot either. And so the Colts, obviously, if I'm going to go in and play that team, I want to play ground and pound. I want to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands. So I think it's going to be really about how the first quarter goes. But the problem with the Chiefs is, a perfect example is Mahomes in week 2, or was it week 3, where Mahomes was the first time ever he was shut out without a touchdown pass, and then proceeded to score 4 in the second quarter. So he can get hot at any moment. and they're going to want. I mean, they didn't look good, against at least overall their offense did not look anything like what it had looked like. They put up points against Detroit, but it was a very unbalanced type game for their tight style of play.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see. That could be that's probably a little more feast or famine, I think, in that game.
Sure.
With Mac.
Right. We've got let's see, Thursday night the Seahawks are at home against the Rams. We talked about Ronald Jones having a decent day against the Rams this past week. Chris Carson, we're still up in the air with Rashad Penny. It looks like he's getting closer to coming back, may be able to suit up this week. I would still think that that it's going to stay in Carson's hands with the workload.
Especially the way he played last week. He ran a good game.
I expect him to have a decent game. I don't know that's going to be anything out of control, but I think he'll have a decent game. You got we talked earlier about Joe Mixon. They're feeding him the rock. Maybe this week he can actually throw up some dominating points with it because they do get Arizona at home. So if there's a team that you're going to get right against, a defense that you're going to get right against as a running back, I would say it's Arizona. So either that or Miami. There's question marks there. If you've got them, you put them in your lineup, unless you've got some serious other options. Somebody else I want to talk about this week that I just kind of have that feeling, just like I said about Zeke. Sony Michel. Sony had 17 carries for 63, wasn't great this week against Buffalo, who has a good D. We've said it. Washington's given up 13th most fantasy points to running backs. Their offense is abysmal. I think that they're not going to have to do – New England's not going to have to do much. They may score on defense if Dwayne Haskins is at the helm. I think this is a game that Michelle can get good, that they could keep it on the ground. He could see, at least the 17, if not 20-plus carries, and maybe break one off and see the end zone once, maybe even twice. I just have this feeling that this could be a week that Sony Michel, does something for you.
All right, but just know that when you play fantasy football with the New England Patriots, it's like doing Russian roulette with 5 of the chambers filled.
I know it is. You got Austin Eckler getting the Broncos coming to town. We said it before. Ride him. Gordon's back. He'll have a full week of practice.
They're going to have to show me Gordon getting some
He'll get
snaps.
some touches, but this is Eckler's job right now.
And he's deserving of it. Like it's not like he is filling in. He's doing what James Conner did, not quite to the level, but pretty good of what James Conner did, filling in. Like I think Gordon's going to have to steal every bit from him. So it's important.
Yep. Let's see. Who else? McCaffrey's got Jacksonville coming to town. Always a tough defense to play against. But we've said it over and over. The offense runs through McCaffrey, so the guy gets a workload. Even on a bad day, he'll do decent for you. Another guy that I'm pretty high on this week from fantasy, unfortunately to the detriment of my team, that's Dalvin Cook for the Vikings, taking on my Giants. The Giants D looked good last week, but it was against a crappy Redskins team. I think we're getting better. I think a lot of that has to do with the offense, being a little more proficient and not having the defense be on the field the whole game.
Yep. But
Dalvin Cook, I think, is going to eat us up this weekend.
Yeah. Well, I think the big part of this is the Vikings have the type of defense that can present problems for a rookie quarterback.
And Kirk Cousins does nothing for me.
Yeah. Well, I don't. And it's the key for them is that they don't need him, and so I just wanted to. Kind of throw that out there that's probably going to be the benefit of Dalvin Cook in this game.
Yep. Henry is at home against the Bills. That's going to be tough sledding. He's good back. That could be tough sledding. Don't expect I don't know that he'll necessarily get 100 yards.
And we mentioned we saw the Falcons-Titans game is the other running back from the Patriots came from the Patriots.
Burkhead?
No.
James White?
No, plays for the Titans.
Deion Lewis?
Deion Lewis, thank you. God, I had a little brain fart there. But he got a fair amount of carries. So, unless where you see a guy like Henry take off is when he gets touches where he can get the 5 to 6 yards per carry, and then they keep feeding him. But if he doesn't, they start changing their offense a little bit.
Yep. Let's see who else is out there. Connor, Baltimore at home. He's questionable right now. Concerns me, like you said, a little bit with Jalen Samuels, especially if Connor's a little banged up. Baltimore's defense, they're what we saw from Nick Chubb. I don't expect that. So this could be tough sledding for Connor. Hopefully he keeps up, a good week. Carlos Hyde is for Houston's facing the Falcons at home. Could be decent because the Falcons are not very good.
Yeah, he's a fringe. If you're in trouble on the bye, he's definitely getting the bulk of the work, but the bulk is not big. And on that, and on the other side of the Steelers, you mentioned the Steelers-Ravens is going to be Mark Ingram.
Yep.
The key, the Pittsburgh defense kind of started to look a little bit more like the Pittsburgh defense we saw last night. So if they come to play, they can win this game and get right back into the thick of things in that division. I certainly think they're going to focus on shutting down the run, both him as well as trying to shut down Lamar Jackson and make Jackson throw. I would certainly think that would be their game plan. And so I if Mark Ingram doesn't get in the end zone, it could be a tougher day on the fantasy end.
Yep. Now, David Montgomery, I love his matchup traveling to Oakland. We said it before. He's taking the lion's share every week more and more. Maybe this is a breakout game for him. It certainly sets up like it could be. I mean, Oakland's rush D isn't awful. It's the better part of their defense. But, this is a game that, he's going to have to help with Chase Daniel back there.
Yeah, well, he's going to get touches. But the question is, and this is kind of what happened in the last game, was, Minnesota just keyed on him when they had Chase Daniel. Now, Chase Daniel was efficient and beat him. But a lot of it, again, is the Bears defense. What I do look for is I think the Bears defense is going to give some short fields. That's what they did. I think Oakland is going to have their problems, and you got a motivated Khalil Mack.
And this isn't at Oakland. This is in London.
This is in London, right. It's a London game.
Okay. Let's see. Who else we got out there? Tevin Coleman maybe coming back this week. But
they're not feeling big on him, though, this week. They're thinking more another week or two.
This is what I said before, like Philly, the Patriots, San Francisco you can throw in there, too, with that mixed backfield. I don't know. I just don't know. So, not that, if you've got him on your roster, I wouldn't anticipate playing him this week. Kansas City is they've got Indianapolis, who can be a decent defense, especially from the run. The Darrell Williams kid if he's out there on the waiver wire, go get him. It's a high-powered offense. Go get him. He's, if you need somebody later on to slot in during a bye, it's obvious that Damian Williams has fell out of contention here. It seems to be that McCoy's getting most of the carries, but they're using Darrell Williams, especially in close. I mean, he's vulturing the touchdown, so even if he just gets you a couple touchdowns and not many yards, that works. So that's somebody, if he's on the wire. We talked about Tampa Bay's backfield. You got Peyton Barber, you got Ronald Jones. I mean, I'd go with Jones just because he's the younger back. He can catch the ball. He showed a little more this week. So, maybe, again, I'm diving in more into people that might be out on the waiver wire that if you need a back or you want to put him on a roster just for when one of your backs is on a bye, that might be somebody to look at.
He's definitely got the higher ceiling in a game. He tends to, when he does play well, he runs for more yards a clip. But if they're not running the ball well, the good news is for Tampa is Winston has gotten the passing game going, so that should help free up the run for both.
And they've got New Orleans this week, so I mean, it's going to be a slugfest divisional matchup. Mm-hmm. Who else we got? Anybody else from the backfield that you want to
really mention
look at?
Them, but I think it's more of a PPR play because you can just tell by the team. But you got Le'Veon Bell with the Jets. Again, he's going to get touches, but that offense is brutal.
Darnold's not back. Who they got this week? They have
the Eagles.
The Eagles,
Now the Eagles have had some crap starts against some not great competition, but given the fact that he's going to be the focal point, I think they're going to force them to throw, and hopefully he gets some nice passing yards. Hopefully, but it's a tough play on that one. Yeah.
For the Giants, Gallman will suit up again. I love him, but this is a Minnesota defense that's pretty good. I'm not sure that this is going to be a great game for Wayne. He'll certainly get the looks, but don't expect to get that 35-point performance out of him like you did last week. Yeah. Anyone else? Yep. Is there anyone else that we should be mentioning? No. So let's move on to wide receiver.
All right.
Chris Godwin, man. I was a little skeptical about this guy, about his ADP preseason. But, man, he's been doing great every week and had another stellar performance this week. Again, you said it. Winston's getting the ball out, not as many turnovers. They're playing the Saints. You're rolling them out there.
And they're going to look away from Lattimore, who's going to have Mike Evans for sure.
Yeah, so he gets Eli Apple. Ha! This is a good week.
Or PJ Williams.
Well, yeah, I mean, it just depends. Like, that's something we need to look at further in the week. You look at it on your own, see if you can get any feedback in terms of who Lattimore is going to be strapped on. Because, we would say Evans, but based on the way Godwin's been performing, don't be surprised if they switch it up. So, but whoever Eli Apple has is the guy you want to go with for Tampa Bay.
Yep.
Sterling Shepard had a decent day again this week. Golden Tate comes back from suspension for the Giants. Just a waiver wire stash, see what happens. Just because we don't have a lot of options at receiver. Again, we're playing the Vikings. This is going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Which may lead to them throwing more. So you could have some good plays. You're probably going to get more. PPR, again, going to be probably stronger as normally it is from a points perspective, but just given the fact that you might see a little bit shorter passing, not maybe challenging them down the field quite as much in this game, if Minnesota does a good job of confusing Daniel Jones.
Sure. Cooper Kupp continues to get crazy, man.
His cup runneth over.
I like it, dude. I like it because I have him on our team in our league, and he's just been great. Despite the woes of Jared Goff, this is the slot guy that he's, that when he's under duress, which seems to be often, it's, check down Charlie. So you keep riding him. Robert Woods had a good day. Brandon Cooks hasn't really done jack squat all year. I'd be a little concerned about that. I'd stay away from him. Tyler Lockett, not a great day against an Arizona team that I expected a lot more out of him from. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Seattle's got who does Seattle have this week?
The Rams.
Yeah. And the Rams got torched last week, so it could be a get-right game for them.
Yeah, it is. It's tough, though, because it is a Thursday night game, so they both get a really short week, and obviously coming off the loss. I think Goff's going to have his hands full, going to have some trouble in this game. I do think they'll get it out to Kupp. I'm not going to be real big on the other two receivers in Woods and not Diggs, the other Cooks. Thank you. I think we'll have to see.
So let's see. Let's talk about that. Kansas City. Tyreek Hill, I don't think is back this week, but approaching, coming back soon. Sammy really hasn't done much since the beginning. Mecole Hardman, bad day. It's going to be a mixed bag there with the receivers until Ty Hill gets back. I think you could always lead on Kelsey no matter what. But I think you don't know. It's a guessing game. So unless it is a high-powered offense, and that's what you're relying on is that, you got a piece of that offense, and hopefully your guy will get involved. Again, I picked up Mecole Hardman, did not have a good day at all. 2 receptions for 9 yards and lost a fumble, but, he could go into this week and blow it up. So, that's just kind of your own discretion. You just depends on who else you have to roll out there at the receiver position. If push comes to shove, then you got a guy that's part of a high-powered offense. Ty, don't know if he's going to be back. If he is, hopefully he gets right back in the swing of things. I like Allen Robinson's matchup this week, my friend.
Yep.
Oakland, I like it. Even with Chase Daniel coming in, he went 7 for 77, didn't see the end zone, has performed pretty solid. Nothing phenomenal, but solid. High floor, I guess you should say. Cincinnati, Arizona, who knows? Christian Kirk didn't look right. I would think Fitzgerald maybe gets does decent. Tyler Boyd, AJ's not back. Tyler Boyd will probably have a better game. He didn't do well at all last night against the Steelers.
Yeah.
John Ross was a little banged up. We've talked about Arizona against the tight ends. It could be a game where, there were some looks even in the end zone for Eifert. He was all right, but I did see, C.J. Uzama out there a good many of the snaps. Another gut feeling. We'll talk tight ends, but maybe that's a guy. If you're looking at playing the tight end against the Arizona team, though Eifert's probably the one guy, for some reason I'm just feeling Uzama. He did see the field a lot.
Yeah, I would tell you a guy, and this is kind of down at the bottom end, but somebody that is progressing for them is going to be, for Cincinnati, is going to be Auden Tate. Mm-hmm. He's gotten a little better each week. I know him. He's a Florida State receiver, poorly utilized there, but he's big. He's hands. He's actually gained some weight. He looked like a big boy out there, and he's starting to get more and more looks. Again, it's a Cincinnati offense, so you got to kind of pick your poison with it. But certainly if you're getting thin or you got some tough matchups, that's probably a guy that's available out there on the waiver wire that, might be able to get you a solid day. And if he gets into the end zone, you could have a really good day with him.
Sure. Who else out there? Baltimore, Marquise Brown, kind of been quiet the past couple weeks. But you said it. If they end up having to push the ball downfield, that's the guy that's going to probably get a little love. If they shut down the run and shut down, if their run game and Ingram and Jackson get shut down, then and he's got to throw the ball, then maybe Hollywood comes back to the fold this week. Julian Edelman.
Yeah.
Good matchup again. Good there. This could be a good week for Amari Cooper. They got Green Bay coming to town. Again, it really kind of depends on the game flow. I kind of anticipate there being more points in this game. You may feel different. But, to get him involved, Dak was a little off after the first 3 weeks of just playing out of his mind. Expect maybe. And if Zeke gets right, that's only going to help that. Keenan Allen, off week, gets the Broncos at home.
I like him. If you look at him, I always talk about with fantasy football, consistency. That's a guy that doesn't get kind of the profile of some of the big ballers, but he will not hurt you. At least 12 of the weeks he will be strong for you. Like, he will be solid, maybe even spectacular, and maybe 4 weeks where you're going to get, probably 2/3 of the points to a half the points that you're going to get. But he's always going to be rated high, so I think it's a good matchup. I'd take him.
Nice. Let's see. Who else we got out there? Here's a guy that if you're in smaller leagues and he's still out there, I like, and that's on the flip side of the ball in this game, and that is Mr. Emmanuel Sanders. Dominant here this year, bro. I mean, you might not see it. It's a little under the radar, but literally, He either goes 100 receiving yards or he has like a TD or two. He's one of the top in the league right now.
Yep.
And, he is very undervalued. If he's out there in any league, go get him. And I anticipate he's not, unless it's a smaller league. But if he's out there, definitely needs to be rostered and slid right in, because it seems to me, after 4 weeks of Joe Flacco at the helm, that's the guy he's going to more times than not.
Absolutely.
So who else we got out there? Tyrell Williams for Oakland. Real tough matchup, man, going against your Bears. So I wouldn't expect a ton from him unless you have to. Might be a guy you want to sideline this weekend.
Could get some garbage time if the Bears can get a lead, though. That might be a little tougher with Chase Daniel to get him a big lead. But we saw a little bit of that with Minnesota. There was a little bit of garbage time, but it was really more in the running game because Kirk Cousins stinks.
Yeah. It could be a tough day also for my man Devontae Adams. He'll get his looks, he'll get targets. Whether he sees the end zone or not, I don't know. Going against a good Dallas D.
And you got to see how his foot works out. It looked like it was kind of minimal, but then
they're saying it's a turf toe.
Yep.
Yep. Let's see. Who was I just looking at that I wanted to speak on?
I would look at just kind of as an idea. I'm looking for Houston to have a little bit of a rebound this week
Yes,
too.
that's
which
what I
hopefully
wanted.
Hopkins.
That's where I was going. You take it, my guy. This is right here.
Because I'm faster, dude. What do you want from me?
We talked about it in the NFL segment. Nuke hasn't done much this year.
Especially the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
tough.
but look, it's gonna come. He's gonna be all right. This is a great week for DeAndre Hopkins with the Falcons coming to town. Again, it's a battle of which offensive line plays worse, I think. But man, I think this is a great game for DeAndre Hopkins, and on the other side of the ball, it's going to be a great game for Julio Jones. You're not like you wouldn't be rolling them out anyways, but in terms of production, I would expect it from both of them this week. Hopefully, Calvin Ridley gets into the mix, but I just don't even know. I don't even know. But I would definitely expect Julio and Nuke to have good days this week. It's just one of those, again, maybe it's the gut, but it's this coming week we'll see. It's a good matchup for both of them, certainly. Bouncing around the league. I don't know. I mean, like Pittsburgh, I definitely think if you're in deeper leagues that the Deontay Johnson kid is somebody you might consider throwing on a roster. He's worth a bench spot and see if this continues. Juju is, it's not doing what you want to from a fantasy perspective, but keep in mind they're going to put everything at Juju when the defense is going up against the Steelers. They're going to take Juju away, and that leaves these other guys open. And you'd spoken about James Washington, his relationship with Mason Rudolph back from Oklahoma State. Expecting more the first week. Rudolph hit him, I think, for a touchdown, but he didn't have many receptions. The Deontay Johnson kid, though, he's definitely in the mix. Yeah. He's definitely in the mix. So, and if Pittsburgh's going to try to make a run at the division, which they still have a chance, starting this weekend with Baltimore to be, win and get a game behind, they're going to have to start being more prolific on offense. So,
yep.
Somebody's going to get some there, and that kid's not bad to throw out there. Like I said, maybe throw him on the bench and see what's to come of it. Who else we got? Because I've got like failed to open page on my computer, so I can't see diddly squat.
Yeah, we probably move on to the quarterbacks. I think we gave a lot there in that one.
Yeah, let's hit the quarterbacks. Actually, yeah, let's hit the quarterbacks really quick. All right, a little quarterback conversation. So Aaron Rodgers got back to form this week. Looked pretty good.
Yeah, definitely put up some yards.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think that's what you expect out of him. So, it's been a little touch and go with him as of late, I guess. But, it's you got him, you're riding him. Russ Wilson, rough day. Thought it would be better because they were taking on Arizona.
Yeah.
They ran the ball a lot. Russ had 240 passing yards and 1 TD. But not, last week he just crushed it. So this was a little, against the team that I expected, more out of against Arizona. He really didn't do much. My man Josh Allen, I actually thought it might be a sneaky sleeper play against New England. Yeah, that didn't work out.
Yeah.
He actually got hit pretty hard at the end of the game, and Matt Barkley came in, and
I don't know if he's going to play this week too.
Yeah, so you need to watch out for that.
I think your two big guns, you had Pat Mahomes, who put up yards, but it was an unspectacular performance from his standard that he has set over the last 2 years or year plus.
No touchdowns.
No touchdown. And granted, that's why they got those yards. The running backs we said that didn't really carry the ball a lot, but they did run the ball on the goal line against the Detroit defense. I think Mahomes will get right this week like normal. I don't think it will be as big of a get right, but it'll be a get right for Deshaun Watson, which are generally your two top tier guys and guys you're not going to put on the bench. Two guys that I think may have still a little bit more struggle this week, and not necessarily as bad, but will be Lamar Jackson, but also I would say you could see Dak Prescott not maybe get back to where he was at before against the Packers in that game. So those are probably, generally speaking, your top 4 fantasy quarterbacks coming in who all had subpar weeks compared to what they've been putting up.
Yeah.
And I think they all may, the 2 of them I think will get right. The other 2 will probably be better, but maybe not as explosive if you've been leaning on them.
Right. Certainly Brady didn't have a great day. It went 39 attempts, 18 completions, 150 yards, no TDs, a pick. I don't know. I mean, again, Washington's not very good, but again, as I alluded to before, I could see them, hitting the ground a lot in this game, which means he may not, put the ball in the air as much. But still, you're rolling him out there if he's your guy more than likely on your fantasy team, and there's probably a better chance of seeing a good game out of him this week. Kyler Murray, a little bit of a rough week at the office this past week. 22 completions for 30 out of 32, 241 yards, no TDs, a pick. This could be a week where he gets better. Again, we talked about it, matching up with Cincinnati. If they can handle the Cincinnati defensive front, then the secondary in Cincinnati, they do have Drake Kirkpatrick, but they can be picked on. Jameis Winston balled out of his mind, and we talked about it. It's what kind of Winston are you going to get? He's definitely improving every week with less interceptions this week. Goes 28 out of 41 for 385, 4 TDs and a pick. They have New Orleans this week. I anticipate that trend will continue, especially for, if New Orleans puts points on the board like we can expect them to do usually with or without Breeze. A little less without Breeze, but still can do it. But it's a divisional game. The first game or second game of the year, Winston went to Carolina and went 16 of 25 for 208 and 1 TD, no picks. So it was like, underwhelming compared to this past week. That said, if you're in, again, you're in deeper league or you're in shallow leagues, you got if he's out there, Winston's somebody that I think you could be comfortable rostering and throwing out there if you don't have another quarterback, or if the other quarterback has a rough matchup, or if you play 2 quarterback leagues, or if you're waiting on a bye week. I know I have Josh Allen, Derek Carr in my ESPN league, and I'm dumping Carr for actually, I don't even think Winston's out there. I think I missed the boat on that, but I am dumping David Carr. It's because David Carr, we'll move right into him. When your leading receiver is Darren Waller, your tight end, which I love him from my Yahoo team, but that's not going to be a lot of yards typically when it's tight end. So, Derek Carr, you might be able to move on from. And for Russ, he's got Thursday Night Football at home against the Rams. The Rams, they let Winston go crazy on him last week. So Russ hopefully can get a get-right game this week. Matt Ryan, Houston is nothing to be afraid of on the defensive side of the ball, but Matt is not looking good.
Yeah, you're not. You're gonna find you're more famine than feast with him. I think as we go forward, they're gonna have problems. He might have some blow up games here and there, but you're gonna be running the risk of, did I play him at the right time? And at this point, you're probably, again, unless it's a super flex or on a bye week, you're probably not considering him at this point.
Right. Dak, he could struggle this week. Again, we talked about it before. If Zeke does well on the ground, which I think I have this gut he's going to, I think that could actually help Dak. His numbers may not be phenomenal, but he's definitely going to look more comfortable, I think, than he did last week if that happens. Jared Goff, Thursday night at Seattle, we just touched on. Done with Jared Goff. Move on. You'd be better off, I think, really rostering a Jacoby Brissett. And there's another name to talk about, especially if he's on the wire. Keep in mind, not phenomenal, but they go to KC this week. So there will be, the just right off the cuff, it's KC. Game script, they're going to put points on the board. The Colts are going to have to keep up. He's done very well. I'm looking at his numbers from our point system. In the first week when he took over, 22 points against at the Chargers. The next week at Tennessee, who we saw made a mockery of Matt Ryan this past week on Matt's own turf. Yes.
No, I'm listening.
But yeah, Brissett had 23.84. Then they had the Falcons last week at home. Brissett 27.3. This past week at home against Oakland 30. So he's continues to progress. More touchdowns than picks. Over those 4 games, he's got 9, 11, 13 touchdowns to 2 picks. Man, that's not bad. Not bad. So definitely somebody that, if you've got a Derek Carr, that's your starter, or if you've got a Matt Ryan, that's your starter, or Jared Goff, that's your starter, you might think about swinging a little Jacoby Brissett your way.
Someone else to think about. I think right now I want to mention this, unless you have a point further on that.
No.
After all the bashing I've done of them, I'm going to say someone to keep an eye on. And if you're in a smaller league and he's not rostered, or if you're in a super flex or even in a larger league and been benching him, keep an eye on Baker Mayfield. And I'm going to tell you why I feel this way. I would not necessarily play him this week. I don't really like their running matchup against San Francisco and going out on the road. But here's what I liked about him. If you looked at his statistics, they weren't otherworldly, but they were very solid. I mean, he was over 300 yards. He had, I think it was
20 for 30, 342, a touchdown on a pick.
Right. But what I like is if this offense decides to stay on this path of running the ball, this is what will make him special. Special in this sense. He could be a little bit more like a poor man's Deshaun Watson in a way if he's utilizing the offense. What the difference is, Deshaun Watson can create magic without the running game. I think Baker Mayfield needs it. And so if that happens, I mean, I expect him to put up yards. Let's not kid ourselves. They got weapons out there. They're a little whacked out sometimes, but they are weapons. And if they do that and run the ball well, they could. I want to watch it though, because they've lost my trust after the first 3 weeks with the chaos they were running, and Baker Mayfield was just a disaster because.
But I love the new commercials, man. Very funny about the Progressive protecting your house, and he's cleaning up. He's after people. He's flipping the switches on the circuit board. Great stuff.
I think what I like about him, and this kind of speaks to him as a quarterback. What I like about him. Like people dogged him and were always like, oh, he's cocky, because he had a few instances in his college career. But the guy, he's kind of a guy that's fun because he loves the game. Like, I really believe it when he gets out there and plays.
Passionate about his team.
And he is like, he's like, give me a chance. He's not afraid to miss a shot. And I like that about him. And that's why I always said you got to rein this kid in a little bit and teach him how to win the games the right way. And again, I think that roadmap they had, they went in and played a team that was playing very well in Baltimore, and they punched them in the mouth. And they did it the right way. And I'm hoping they learned something from this. And if they do, this is the type of kid that can throw for 300 plus a game and put up a couple of scores and have you a really nice fantasy day. Not to mention he can scramble a little bit. He's not going to run like Deshaun, but he's going to do that. And so just someone to keep an eye on, see where he is in your league or if he's on your bench. And I would watch it over the next week or two. But if you continue to see Nick Chubb producing, I think you're going to see a very strong play in Baker Mayfield.
Yep. Let's see who else. Kirk Cousins. I know it's against the Giants. No, thank you.
Why?
Sam Darnold's not back. Joe Flacco. No, thank you. Marcus Mariota. The Falcons made him look like, Tom Brady. They have the Bills this week. No, thank you. Daniel Jones, love him. Not ready just to commit yet. Teddy Bridgewater, solid at managing games, but no, thank you. Let's see. Phil Rivers. A lot of people, he might still be out there on some waiver wires because people are, but quietly.
300 yards a game you're going to get out of that guy.
That's what he's got done. That's what he's
90%
done.
of the time.
He's got
and a couple of scores.
5, 7 TDs to 2 picks. in our point scoring system, week 1, 30.42, week 2, 10.42, bad. Week 3, 24.62. This week against Miami, 25.9. They have Denver, not that great. So, and without Bradley Chubb, could be a decent week for Rivers. Gardner Minshew, another guy that's quietly, done fairly decent. He's not going to blow it up, but his floor seems to be pretty solid.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about him is they have not turned over this offense to him fully yet, which I understand. This is a team that has kind of put the reins on him a little bit, but they've also been in positions where he is needed to make plays, and he's done it. And I think that's what's keeping his stats down a little bit. As they start to take the reins off him, he's the opposite of Baker Mayfield, I think, in the sense that take a little bit more of the reins off him. You're going to see this kid can chuck it around, and they're not void of talent on the outside. I mean, D.D. Westbrook is serviceable, but I think Chark's pretty good, DJ's solid, and O'Shaughnessy's played well for them.
Hennessy.
O'Shaq. And then again, if there's another one, if Fournette gets going, because he's not going to run for 229 every week, but if he's running for 120, 130, this kid can sling it. He's had some tough matchups, and he has played beyond admirably.
Yeah,
he has played
we
very
just
well.
Said Rivers, who's
so keep an eye.
Fantasy numbers, because he's putting up 300 yards a game to roughly about a 200 average, a little over that for Minshew. But Rivers had 7 TDs and 2 picks thus far this season, and Minshew not even having the full load because, there was a minute where we had Foles, but Minshew's gone 7 TDs to 1 pick. So, again, high floor for him if you need him. You got a bye week, super flex, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Grapes, that's who I dropped Derek Carr for. Not phenomenal. Okay.
They're an undefeated team.
They're undefeated. He's spreading the ball around. My concern is that he's had 5 touchdowns and 4 picks. That's my biggest concern with him. But they are getting Cleveland at home on Monday night. And if Cleveland does jump out to a lead against it, like they did against a team like Baltimore, they're going to have to sling it around to keep them for the 49ers to stay in the game. So somebody to keep an eye on, maybe a roster and stash spot.
Did you hit on Wentz?
That would be my final guy. Kyler Murray. I think we touched on him. Could be a get-right week for him. On the opposite side of the ball, there's nothing scary to me about Arizona's D, so that would lead you to believe, hey, Andy Dalton, man. Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you. Done with Andy Dalton. Which leads me to the final quarterback I wanted to touch on. We did talk about Mahomes, right? Of course we did. Let me just say one thing. I think we just touched on, was it Phil? Yeah, Phil Rivers. Best game he had was the first game at home against Indy. Went 25 for 34, 333, 3 TDs and a pick. And Indy gets to go to KC this week. So Mahomes, not only a good get-right game for him, could really go nuts. And I do think Indy's D is stingy, but that's where I'm seeing there. So Carson Wentz is who I wanted to wrap it up on. Has done decent with not a lot. Has had 313, 231, 259 in his worst week this week at 160 yards consecutively. Has 6, 8, 9 TDs to 2 picks. Slinging the ball about 38 times on average a game. This is a week I think that Carson Wentz will end up as the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football. They will travel to MetLife to get the hapless Jets, whose run D is decent. Their secondary, not so much. Carson Wentz is no stranger to MetLife Stadium. Again, maybe it's just a gut. I have this feeling that, and they may get Deshaun Jackson back. I don't think it'll really matter. I think this could be a week where Wentz is the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football.
Well, I mean, and in fairness to him, like he didn't start out great, but all of his weapons started going down. You can see Aguilar, who was, hopefully going to be the guy to play break out, got made fun of by a guy who saved a baby. I don't know. Did you hear this story?
No.
Guy on the news in Philadelphia, because Philly fans are awesome. Like, they just are awesome. If you want to hate a group of fans, hate all Philadelphia sports fans because they are mean. So a guy, baby falls out of a window, I think a fire. Guy catches it, and he goes, so the guy asks him, he goes, what were you thinking when he did it? He goes, well, I'm not going to be like Nelson Aguilar. I'm actually going to catch the thing. So even in despair, they can rip on their players. But in this week, Aguilar had 1 target and 0 receptions. So the important thing to me is, I guess, he's obviously fallen out of favor. Alshon Jeffrey came back, probably still not totally right. Goddard came back. Ertz. As you get these guys back, it's going to help Wentz. And Wentz went for 160, but he also threw 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
And now you're incorporating the running backs into the passing game.
And if they can
so
do
he's got a great opportunity.
Yeah, I think this could be a big week for Carson Wentz. Again, call it my gut, but that's just I'm going out there with it. So, I think we touched on just about everybody, guys that are rostered, guys that might be worth a look.
Yep.
Matchups moving forward, how that's going to play out. But let's move to tight end and talk a little bit about what we got going on there. The main players, Kittle coming off a bye. Think he could have a good week. Again, you're playing him. Ertz had a very solid week. Kelsey, solid week. Both of them tremendous matchups, I think more so even for Ertz. Evan Ingram didn't really do much this past week, unfortunately. I know you have him on your team.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's going to get better this week. They do have the Vikings coming to town. Austin Hooper, unbelievable day. And honestly, he's a guy that I think is going to continue to climb the ranks, not for anything else other than the fact that Matty Ice doesn't look right, and that's his safety
security
blanket.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and he look. Don't get it twisted. Hooper was a very, very effective pass catching tight end at Stanford. Very effective. He was one of the guys coming out that I was like, wow, that's a good player, and he could really do some great things for the Falcons, and he's done solid thus far in his career. This year definitely being his best, at least starting out the gates. And like I said, he's the safety blanket. So who else we got this week? Mark Andrews has got to go to Pittsburgh.
Good, decent linebacking core, and he didn't really get, he got hurt and then wasn't targeted as well previously. So, you kind of gotta, you're probably gonna play him because I gotta believe he's one of your top 8 tight ends. Guy that I think, even though it's a bad matchup, but could do well is Waller again. Could have another good performance for them.
He's the main target.
Well, they're not going to have a lot of time to throw. The other part is it's not looking good that Roquan Smith. Nobody really knows what the deal is with him not playing. They're not going to
strap Khalil Mack to a tight end. They're going to keep him rushing.
No. Know this. They do drop one of their outside linebackers into coverage on a lot of plays, and they do alternate between him and Floyd. But the reality is that coverage responsibility would come out of the middle. That would be Roquan's wheelhouse in that defense, but it does not look good that he's going to play. So, and I also see them, they're not going to have a lot of time to throw. They're not going to be able to stretch the field against the Bears very often unless they get into garbage time, which is kind of where Cousins started gaining some yards in the last game. So I look for Waller certainly to be targeted and have some chances in coverage. I think he's a good up-and-coming tight end. I don't think he's going to probably get in the end zone. I think it's going to be very tough for Oakland to score in that game. But if he gets 10 catches, you're doing really well.
Yeah.
Probably a question I have for you is, what are you feeling about our buddy Disley?
We heard our man Jeff Manns this week when we listened to him. Love him. Elite Sports, Fantasy Football Radio, Sirius XM 210. He was off Disley, and they were playing Arizona, and Arizona has been just given the mansion to tight ends this year, and his take was that they made a point prior to this past week's game of saying, hey, we got to fix this. This can't happen. And so Manns' take on it was, especially from getting in the end zone, that they would put more attention to it, and that would probably lock down a guy like Will Disley, who's he's not an unbelievable tight end talent.
Yeah.
So he kind of said shy away from him Jeff was wrong. It's
Right,
okay.
but in fairness
Look.
to him, what he's also trying to teach people about fantasy, and this is an important part, is you got too many people that are 1 or 2 weeks too late on something in the buy low, sell high mentality, and everybody does the exact opposite because they try to wait to the very end. And I don't know that he's wrong. I just think, I mean, you're just
You're not the guys. Look, you're not going to get it perfect. And if you're going to hang on his everything and ride or die by it, then you better just take it with a grain of salt and appreciate what he's giving you. If you're pissed about it, well, then stop listening or taking his advice and be your own man.
Yeah, and in fairness, like, you know, again, this is not really about him. We heard that from him, but it's not the first time. You know, people are going back and forth because Disley is, in a lot of ways, boomer bust because it's not like he's a yardage, you know, gobbler. He's a touchdown guy.
Yep, he's had 4 touchdowns in the past 3 games.
Yeah, so that's really it. But you know, this matchup in particular, they are going to have to throw probably a little bit more, though. I'm really starting to. If Rams are 3-1, but I see a lot of challenges with that team. Like this team is built to run through Gurley, and it can't right now. And
it can't. And then so that leaves Goff to get it done, and he's poop.
Yeah, I mean, he's skated by. He's had one really good game and some other ones where it's like, yeah.
Yep. You got Olsen, got the Jags coming this weekend. I'm not a big fan of it. Olsen had a poor week last week, only 4 targets, 2 receptions, 5 yards, didn't see the end zone. He had a good couple weeks prior, but that, again, Arizona, week before that was Tampa Bay. So, I'm not, I love Greg Olsen. I don't really like this matchup. Delaney Walker didn't do much against Atlanta. In fact, probably did have his worst game. Had only 2 targets, and he's had 9, 6, and 6 in the 3 games prior. They do have Buffalo this week, who's tough. He's solid. I mean, they didn't need him in that game, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
He's solid. If you have no other choice, you could play him. The Indy tight ends, I think they're going to have to be involved because, Kansas City, they're going to put points on the board.
Yep.
Both guys saw the end zone this weekend, if not, I'm not mistaken. I think Doyle's okay after taking that head blow from Burfict, so he should be back out there. Ebron had 5 targets, only caught it once. But it was a 48-yard reception for a touchdown, so it saved his day because until then he wasn't doing diddly. But again, they're going to have to be involved this week, I think, in order. And if Max not good to go, and if for some reason Ty is not good to go, that'll lift them up, their floor up, I would say, a little bit more.
Yeah, you're gonna get touchdown possibilities. Which once you get past the first five tight ends, you're probably looking for guys that are going to get touchdowns.
Yep. Noah Fant, one of the high-drafted tight ends out of Iowa with T.J. Hawkinson, got to the end zone for the first time in his NFL career. Congrats to that young man. They go to L.A. this week to take on the Chargers. Not very high on that. I need to see consistency there.
Yeah, after his first week or two, though, he has turned it on. He has looked better, and he's much more fluid than most tight ends when he runs. Like, I kind of watching him a little bit. I've seen him play a few times. He is He's got the potential. He's got the potential and to climb the board a little bit.
Yep. Let's see who else we got. We got Jason Witten. How about this for a model of consistency? Week 1 against the Giants, 4 targets. Week 2 against the Redskins, 4 targets. Week 3 against the Dolphins, 4 targets. Week 4 against the New Orleans Saints.
Do you have 4 targets?
He had 4 targets. Not doing great. I think didn't he have a fumble in this game? I think he might have. Love him in terms of, historically, just a great tight end. Not somebody, unless you need to, you want a roster. And so you're looking, we said who's on the bye? Miami. Well, you don't have a tight end there. You may have Hawkinson from Detroit, and they're on a bye. So at that point, maybe you take him. It is Green Bay. And on the other side of the ball, Jimmy Graham, I still don't trust him, even though he got in the end zone again this past weekend. But week 1, he had 3 receptions for 5 targets, 3 receptions, 30 yards, and a TD. This week he had 9 targets, 6 receptions for 61 yards and a TD. The 2 weeks in between, he had 1 target apiece and no receptions. So it's hit or miss, and I can't do it with him. Let's see who else we got out there. Blah, blah, blah. That covers a lot of them. I think we touched on Mark Andrews. The last ones I guess I'll touch on, which I spoke on earlier, was the Cincinnati-Arizona game. Considering, we just said, Arizona, though they might be trying to focus on doing better at stopping tight ends, they weren't able to do it against Disley. So Cincinnati coming to town. Eifert, again, Uzama. I think actually Uzama, could see the end zone here in this game, and Eifert not. Eifert will see probably more targets than Uzama, but I could see Uzama making more plays, maybe having more yards and seeing the end zone. One of them, I believe, will see the end zone for Cincinnati. That said, unless you're desperate or unless you're playing like a GPP tournament in daily fantasy and you want a contrarian or you want one of those randoms to help put you at the top, I think one of those two will see the end zone, and I'm leaning Uzama's way. Again, Eifert's the lead tight end, but Uzama, man, every time I turned around, he was on the field. I think he might have, and I don't have him in front of me, I apologize, but he might have outsnapped Eifert in last night's game. So keep an eye on that. Not going to really talk defenses. We just a little disappointment for my Baltimore defense. Your Chicago defense is unbelievable.
The only thing I will say is, because we say it all the time, and I am a sinner this week, I had to go and get right and get my reconciliation. I came out of that Falcons game. I wasn't looking so good, and I was talking to you, and I talked myself out of playing the Bears defense because I had to play Dalvin Cook, and I really needed Dalvin Cook to do well in order to win, I thought. Thankfully, my opponent pooped the bed, and I didn't need to, but I put the Bears defense on the bench for the Denver Broncos.
Mistake.
40 points to 15 points.
Yeah.
Now, I still won, so I made it, but this is the second time I benched the Bears defense, and I will not be doing it again.
Well, that's a tough.
Maybe against Kansas City when they play Kansas City.
It's a tough putt when you have your number one back going against your defense, and you don't want to kind of eat off your own plate. So I get it. We discussed it a little bit, and you were talking about, I think, playing someone instead of Dow and riding with Chicago's D, and I don't think that would have been the play. I would have done what you have done. You did if I was going to make that move too.
Who I was going to play, I would have still gotten more points if I would have done that. But the idea was if I would have played the Bears and Dalvin Cook, I had David Montgomery as well. I ended up winning. But the point is, if you have a gut and guys have it, and listen, the Bears have given me zero reason to not play them, no matter who they played so far, defensively speaking. You just don't do that. So I would say
your gut.
Yeah, you got. I guess I'll run down some potential guys. I think most leagues would have the Vikings taken. I think they got a good matchup against the Giants. Yeah. So that one's probably not available for you.
I like Buffalo's matchup this weekend.
Buffalo against the Titans. Yeah, that's not a bad one. Probably another one you could look at is maybe the Texans against the Falcons. Though I would say that's kind of more these three I'll give you. Jaguars on the Panthers and the Eagles on the Jets. All of those defenses have given you a reason not to play them at points, but their matchups are a little bit better. I think the Panthers might struggle a little bit only because I think that Jaguars have enough athleticism up front to contain McCaffrey to a point. I still think McCaffrey's going to score, kind of like Dalvin Cook with the Bears kind of thing. I think the Texans are going to get right and get better, and the Falcons just are. I'm not seeing it. I think they could if they get into a pass-happy game and can get to sacking Matt Ryan, it could get ugly. And again, the Jets just are not very good. The problem is the Eagles have given up points to bad teams this year. So those are probably some of your ones where if you're in a pinch, you can look at them and see which one you feel most comfortable with.
Yep. So that's going to wrap it for our fantasy football look going into, coming out of week 4, going into week 5. We'll get some more up there for you as soon as we can. We'll have this up hopefully later today. Enjoy. Have a great day.
Life's the same, I'm moving in stereo. Life's the same, except for my shoes. Life's the same, you're shaking like tremolo. Life's the same, it's all inside.